He stepped into the courtroom expecting fairness, but instead, every glance cut him down. A teenager dismissed as nothing more than a kid out of place became the target of smirks and whispered jokes. The judge's mocking laughter echoed louder than the gavel, drowning out his dignity. But behind that silence burned something no one saw coming, a truth powerful enough to shake the entire room. What happens when a system built on prejudice underestimates the very person it tries to humiliate? Marcus had always been the kind of teenager who carried more books than friends. His world revolved around late nights of studying, afternoons helping his mother with chores, and stolen moments where he dreamed of a future brighter than the one laid out for him. In school he stood out, not for trouble, but for his brilliance. Teachers whispered about scholarships, neighbors spoke of his discipline, and his family quietly believed he was destined for something great. But the world outside his home didn't always see him that way. To many, he was just another black kid in a hoodie, another name that could be easily dismissed. Marcus knew this, but he tried to rise above it, trusting that hard work and integrity would protect him. That morning, he walked into the courthouse with a notebook under his arm, a calm expression masking the nerves beneath. It wasn't supposed to be his battle. He was just there to observe, to learn. Yet from the moment he stepped inside, the air felt different, colder, heavier. The stares lingered too long, the whispers carried an edge, and when his name was called, the laughter came. No one knew who he really was. No one expected what he carried inside. And in that silence, the stage was set for a confrontation that would expose far more than anyone was ready to face. The first laugh was small, but it spread quickly, like a ripple turning into a wave. Marcus felt it before he fully heard it. The judge leaned back in his chair, smirking as if the teenager's presence was nothing more than a joke. The murmurs from the crowd sharpened into chuckles, the sound echoing off marble walls that had witnessed countless trials. To them, Marcus was out of place, too young, too black, and too ordinary to be taken seriously. He wasn't wearing a suit, just a pressed shirt and slacks, his notebook clutched tightly in his hands. The very sight of him standing before the bench seemed to fuel their mockery. The judge's voice, dripping with sarcasm, carried across the room. Was this really the best the community could send? Marcus stood frozen, heat rising in his chest. Every instinct told him to stay quiet, to avoid drawing attention. He had seen what happened to those who pushed back too hard against authority. But another voice inside urged him to remember why he came. This wasn't just a visit. He was here to challenge something far larger than himself. The tension built with every second. The judge's smirk widened. The courtroom spectators leaned in, and Marcus felt the weight of centuries pressing down on his shoulders. He wasn't just facing ridicule. He was standing inside a system that had belittled, silenced, and discarded people like him for generations. Still, he kept his composure. His eyes scanned the room, noting the stenographer avoiding eye contact, the bailiff shifting uncomfortably, and the families watching with half-hidden sympathy. They all knew what this was, but none of them would speak. The silence was as loud as the laughter. When Marcus finally opened his notebook, the room fell quiet, though not out of respect. It was curiosity, like watching a child attempt something doomed to fail. His hands trembled slightly, but his voice did not. He began outlining points of law, precedents, and rights with a precision that stunned even those who wished to see him fail. But the judge wasn't ready to lose his stage. He interrupted often, each time with sharper sarcasm, each time trying to reduce Marcus to a punchline. The laughter returned, sharper now, edged with hostility. It wasn't just disbelief. It was anger at the idea that this boy might actually know more than they expected. Marcus pressed on, every word cutting deeper into the room's prejudice. Yet with each page he turned, the tension grew heavier, as though the walls themselves were waiting to see if he could withstand the pressure. And then, just when the tide seemed to shift, something happened that none of them were prepared for. The judge leaned forward, eyes narrowing, and slammed his gavel with a force that silenced the room. His next words weren't mocking. They carried something else, something Marcus had been waiting for all along. But was it recognition? Or the beginning of something even more dangerous? The gavel cracked like thunder, and the judge's smile vanished. The room, once alive with mocking laughter, now hung in silence. Then came the words, sharp and heavy. Marcus had no right to be here. He was unqualified, unworthy, and most of all, out of place. His presence, the judge declared, was an insult to the very system he dared to challenge. Gasps rippled through the gallery, but no one stood up for him. The bailiff moved closer as if Marcus were a threat. The air grew suffocating. In that moment, Marcus felt the weight of history pressing down. Centuries of doors slammed shut, of voices silenced before they could rise. He had come prepared with knowledge, with truth, with evidence. Yet none of it seemed to matter. His words, his brilliance, and his very humanity were being erased with a single ruling of disdain. But Marcus didn't waver. His voice, steady though his heart pounded, rose above the heavy silence. He cited case law, constitutional rights, and decisions that could not be ignored. He forced the judge and everyone watching to hear what they had tried to dismiss. His voice became the voice of every young person underestimated, every community silenced, and every dream denied. Still, the judge leaned forward, eyes narrowing, and delivered a final blow. If Marcus continued, there would be consequences, serious ones. It wasn't just his argument at stake anymore. It was his future, his freedom. The entire room held its breath. Would he back down, accept the humiliation, and walk away quietly? Or would he risk everything to expose the truth they were so desperate to hide? Marcus did not walk out of that courtroom with applause. He walked out with something heavier, something sharper, the knowledge of what it meant to stand against a system built to silence him. The judge had tried to strip him of dignity, but in the end, it was Marcus's words that lingered in the air, refusing to be erased. Even those who doubted him couldn't deny what they had witnessed, brilliance that no amount of prejudice could bury. But the cost was real. He left knowing that doors might close faster now, that opportunities could be quietly taken away, and that his name would be remembered not for what he achieved, but for daring to stand where he was never meant to. Yet in that sacrifice there was power. His stand was not just about one boy in one courtroom. It was about exposing the truth so many had lived, but so few had seen acknowledged. The story of Marcus is not an isolated one. It echoes through countless lives, where talent and potential are overlooked, where voices are mocked before they're ever heard, and where justice bends under the weight of prejudice. And the question remains, haunting and urgent. How many more must endure this before change is more than a promise? This is not just his story. It's a mirror held up to us all. What we choose to see, and what we choose to do next, will decide whether the laughter of injustice continues, or whether voices like Marcus's finally break through the silence. So ask yourself, the next time you witness prejudice, will you stay silent, or will you stand?